everyone, my name is Mary Barroll and I'm president of TalentEgg. I'm very pleased to be here at the 2020 National CACEE Conference and to be moderating this important panel of students from across Canada. They're here to give us a first-hand perspective of how the recent challenges brought on by the pandemic has impacted them, whether it's altered their education and career plans and hopes and dreams for their future, and what educators and employers can do to support them. I'm going to begin by introducing each of the panelists and ask each of you to give us a wave when I call your name. Joining us today in no particular order is Bonnie Wu from Queen's University Commerce Program, Aaron Sophocleous, Rose School of Business, Dalhousie University, Gurkurat Singh, Centennial College, studying Software Engineering Technology, Marshall Podell, Humber College, Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting, Haley Marlowe, University of Toronto, Bachelor of Arts, Jada Mansour, Haskayne School of Business, U of C, and Andrew Wong, Beatty School of Business, SFU. Welcome, everyone. So first of all, let's talk about how you were impacted by the onset of COVID-19 in 2020. By show of hands, how many of you lost your summer jobs or internships, co-op, or a new job? And how many of you were transitioned to work from home environment? So maybe we could just talk about that experience. Marshall, could you tell us what happened to you?
Okay, so what happened to me is I was trying to still find a placement. So I was going to interviews, had a couple scheduled weekly, and all of them suddenly disappeared for some reason. Because of the pandemic, could no longer have the opportunity. So I had to transition to, I actually ended up starting my own business and getting school credit for that, as well as using previous work experience to get credit for.
Well, that was certainly a challenging summer for you, for sure. Jada, what happened in your experience?
I unfortunately had the internship get canceled. I had gone through the first and second round of interviews, but it ended up getting canceled. So I had to seek out alternative ways to kind of continue that professional development. And
what did you manage to find for yourself?
So I joined a pro bono consulting project, and that was a really great way to get some experience and also get that professional development I was seeking from an internship.
So that's very, it shows a lot of initiative on your part to have been able to make that transition. Aaron, what was your experience?
My co-op work term that I had lined up for the summer ended up becoming a work from home for the whole summer, and actually gotten shortened from 4 months to 3 months. And I was going to be moving to Toronto from Halifax for the summer, but I ended up being able to complete the work term from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and reimagining a trade floor in my apartment.
And Bonnie, what happened to you?
Fortunately, my company was able to move very quickly, and I had the same dates, and they were able to send me a laptop to work from home.
Okay, well, that's lucky for you then. That's very fortunate. Andrew, what was your experience?
I had an internship that was supposed to be 4 months, but it got shortened to 2 months, and also work from home as well.
So you made that transition, you at least had part of your internship, but of course you must have been disappointed with it being shortened the way it was.
Right, for sure. I think the company just needed some time to adjust, onboarding a lot of students onto their platforms and sending all the laptops out took quite a bit of time.
And Gurkurat, you also had something like that in terms of an experience for your summer, didn't you?
Yeah, luckily I started on 16th of March, on the day in which the pandemic was, the lockdown was announced in Canada. So yeah, from the next day onwards, we were like, we had to work from home. But yeah, I would say, fortunately, I was like, it did not affect me that much.
Well, that's great. And Haley, what was your experience?
I did have an interview lined up, but unfortunately, because of the onset of COVID, the position was canceled, so they weren't hiring anymore. But luckily, I did have a position working in marketing come through for me at the last minute, which was very fortunate, very lucky on my part, which it ended up being a work from home experience.
And so overall, I wonder if you could sort of address you know, what that meant to you in terms of having to adjust and reimagine your summer and maybe your immediate future. Maybe we could start with you, Jada. You had to do a bunch of juggling.
Yeah, for sure. So I do have to say it was disappointing getting that internship canceled, but luckily there are so many opportunities coming out of different ways I can get involved and continue that professional development. So I was really fortunate to still find an opportunity I can pursue.
And Marshall, you certainly were challenged and started your own business. Maybe did that turn out to be the silver lining of this whole summer experience?
Yeah, I would say so, considering I'm planning to continue it. I started a personal taxation business and actually managed to get 45 clients so far. So it actually made a decent bit of money and was a fun experience. I also joined like a global gap challenge just to try to stay busy and keep somewhat sane, because that was a challenging aspect of it too. And I did some other work from home for the school, tutoring.
So on the whole, it really stretched you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a change, considering before this, I used to be out of my house and only be home pretty much just to sleep, and now transitioning to living at home pretty much and hardly going outside.
Right. Well, you wouldn't be the only one, that's for sure. At least you can share that experience with a lot of the rest of us. Erin, how did this whole change impact you?
The change impacted me in terms of being able to find a workplace environment in my apartment that I could complete the position. Also, it impacted my thoughts on the horizon on how to network within the organization and to learn the technology remotely, where it is difficult when joining a new organization, but doing it in a work from home environment had ensured that I adapted and learned new skills while not being physically present in the office.
And Andrew, it sounds like you had an opportunity to do that as well. Did you find that there was support from your employer to be able to help you make that transition?
Yeah, for sure. I think if anything, the online transition had some benefits as well. Being able to network across the country is just, I guess, a Zoom call away instead of having to meet in person. So there were definitely some benefits to a virtual setting, but the company definitely helped me adjust with the technology. A lot of transition materials were just created for this online transition. So definitely a process, but definitely there was a lot of support there.
And Haley, how did you manage this whole new experience of working from home?
I'm sure, as everyone on this call right now knows, working from home is not easy. It's just being able to find a space within your house that's quiet, and living with your family when they're doing their own things and being loud. It's very difficult. And I found personally that it's very difficult to separate work life from your personal life, and now it kind of feels like work never ends now. So that was definitely difficult, but it was nice not having to commute every single day, be on the GO train. But it definitely was a little bit of a transition and having to change that mentality.
Yeah, and I guess now, we've gone through 7-8 months of this now, and so we're looking at the future. And it's important that employers and educators understand how your perspectives have changed from this whole experience. I wonder if you could tell me how many of you have been going to virtual events to connect with employers during this time? Have you been attending any virtual events? Marshall, maybe you could tell us what your experience has been.
So I actually got another position this summer as a board of ambassador for CPA Ontario. So I've used that to go to the PSAP events that they have, and I've actually helped host a couple events for my school. So I've connected with multiple CPAs and employers, as well as throughout the school to create and put on events with employers. So I've gotten the chance to talk to some pretty well and get to know them.
And what in your mind makes a good virtual event versus one that is not working quite so well? What should employers know if they're setting these up?
they should know that I'm finding actually that virtual events are attracting more audience than in-person events. So expect larger numbers and try to create an event that creates engagement. So for the events we are creating, we're leaving generally like in the in-person events, we left like 20 minutes for question and answer. In the virtual events, people feel more open because they're not put on the spot as much. So we're finding like 45 minutes for question and answer because people want to know more and have more to say.
Yeah, so you know, not only do you need a more robust platform, but you also need to be able to have enough time to engage with all the attendees. Erin, did you have any particular observations on any of the virtual events you went to?
Yes, I do think that a breakout room style type of event is effective. Breaking up the larger group of audience within a smaller portion in order to get that engagement one-on-one conversations. Because as we all know, events are wonderful and we can all participate. And a breakout room style event allows for connection and engagement.
And Jada, what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree about the breakout room session. I also find that when there's a PowerPoint and it tends to kind of drag on, it starts to feel like a class and you lose that engagement a little bit. I also find that like personal storytelling is a really effective way to engage an audience, and sharing personal experiences, that's something that I always remember. I remember attending a networking event several months ago, and I remember the speaker actually went off script from the PowerPoint and shared a personal story, and like I still remember it and it really resonated with me. So I think that's a really effective way to engage an audience.
Andrew, have you noticed anything that really work in virtual events that you've attended?
100%. I totally echo the facts of breakout rooms really creating the level of engagement, but I think some companies have gone out of their way to have also one-on-one chats as well after the event. I think that's a great way to bond with an employee in the company. A lot of companies nowadays ask, why do you want to work for X company? I think it's hard to answer that if you don't have that connection. So getting that one-on-one coffee chat really enables that opportunity to learn more about the company and for them to know you as well.
Bonnie, any observations?
Once again, I echo the breakout room situation. One of the experiences that I had that I found were to be really impactful is not only did they have breakout rooms, they hosted the breakout rooms kind of in a speed dating nature. So they would have certain representatives just hop from room to room, and you had a short amount of time to really get to know a lot of people. And not only did you get a lot of touch points with the representatives from the company, it kind of keeps you on your toes as well, so you're not droning on with the same person. And another feature that I found to be really beneficial is in Zoom, you have a polling feature as well as a marking feature. So each participant has the opportunity to kind of check mark or participate on the actual PowerPoint screen. So whenever they're doing little experiments or little voting sessions, you really get to see how your perspective and your opinions align and compare with the other participants.
Yeah, for sure. And Haley, you mentioned you went to some virtual events. What is it that stands out for you that really worked and what didn't?
For sure, I'll echo everything that's been said. Love breakout rooms. Something that really stood out to me in one particular event that I went to, it was an invitation session for a Canadian refugee aid organization. And they actually kind of went the extra mile and showed a documentary that they had produced within the organization that highlighted a few of like the stories of the people that they'd helped. And that really stood out to me, especially because it kind of provided another layer of information about the organization that really made the question period after the event just so much more just much more in depth, and it gave people a lot more of a basis to ask questions and really good questions about. So I think 100% interacting with your participants in unique ways, being able to find ways that really speak to them to connect, whether that's through a documentary or it's through one-on-one breakout sessions.
So outside of the world of virtual events that you may have been attending, what is it that you think that employers could do to better capture your attention and engage you as potential people that they might want to bring on board as employees? What do you need to see from them? What resonates with you, especially now after COVID has hit? Maybe we could start with you, Marshall.
So this one's a bit hard to answer, actually. For me, I would actually look at what they've done to react to COVID and the situation and see what they're doing. Because I know like some companies did massive layoffs and are trying to rehire those people. So that to me is a better thing than having a company that did a bunch of layoffs and then is trying to hire new people, because it shows that they care about their staff. So I want to find a company that cares about its staff and treats it well. Like one thing I'm interested in is job security, especially with the current climate. So for me, just advocating like what they've done in this environment and what they're continuing to do is a big thing for me.
Yeah, so we've heard in the past a lot about, an employer's culture, but now we have a new culture that, what is the culture? How is it being impacted? How are they sustaining that culture within the context of a global pandemic? And I think you're really talking about something that's super important. It's the humanity of their employees and how well they're taking care of them. Does that resonate with everyone else here on the panel? Aaron, maybe you wanted to add a little bit more about that?
Sure. Health and wellness is at the forefront, and where we lose that connection of daily interactions with the employer and the culture, it's important to see companies creating dialogue and conversations around health and wellness, whether it's info sessions and providing resources, such as one of my employers actually every Wednesday had a Wellness Wednesday where we meet for a week. We met for an hour and we discussed the health and wellness of the interns, and also were provided credits towards a local gym where we participated in virtual workout classes.
Oh, that's really that's very innovative and really supportive. That's great news. Jada, what really impacts you in terms of what you want to know about employers?
I think for me, one of the things that tends to be a little bit kind of a source of anxiety is onboarding in a remote environment. I know that transition period, like starting a position, is already difficult, and I think that difficulty is kind of amplified in a remote environment. So I think if companies could really speak to how they plan to onboard and how they plan to create an inclusive environment when everyone's at home and maybe not even meeting each other. So I think that's something that companies could really communicate.
That's a really good point, because so many companies had to, rush to be able to integrate new systems to be able to do it effectively. And I'm sure they learned a lot, but you're saying also how they do it, and that they're spending time to put in systems that work effectively is an important message they should be telling potential candidates.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of job postings, you could see it just says remote, and that's all it says. So there's kind of a lot of uncertainty in terms of like how that would play out and how that would look for me.
Right. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this point? Does it matter to you about the employer communicating what their policies are around keeping their employees safe during this time?
100%. I think it's really important for employers to really shine during this time. I think especially during the COVID era with health and wellness and everything, really delineates companies that do value health and wellness and communicating with their employees versus a company that may just put it to the side. And I think during my internship, I always got able to check in with my team, my small personal team, and it was really an opportunity for the leadership to step up and really shine and really focus in on how everyone, even though we're virtual, we can still be connected and really create a really strong work culture, even though it's virtual.
And Haley, what are your thoughts around this?
Kind of to echo what Andrew just mentioned, this has been a very difficult time for almost everybody, and I feel like students especially have been hit very hard because traditionally, maybe they've been less valued by employers than senior employees. So I think something that employers can really do to help promote the wellness and the safety of their employees is just to make students feel valued, is to ensure that when they're advertising positions, they're advertising the fact that students are a valuable and an important part of the team. They will not be cast to the side. And I think that's a very crucial thing to make students want to apply and to make students feel that they will have like a good career if they apply to that position, is just feeling that they have a good space on the team and that they are able to make meaningful contributions.
Bonnie, did you have anything to add?
One of the most important things that I learned working remotely was that I definitely had to be flexible and adapt to an entirely new, different skill set than I was used to really stand out. These new skill sets were something that were emphasized by the remote environment and not in some different attributes that I wouldn't have been really focused on if I were working in person. So one thing that my company did to really support us was having these little Friday socials. It was only 1 hour every Friday, but it did a lot in taking you out of your little bubble with your small team and reminding you that you're part of a bigger company, you're part of like a bigger team. And sometimes it's so nice to see everyone else, like all the other interns that I didn't get to see all week. And that little aspect really ended our week on a really high note.
It's really important to be able to still not feel so isolated and alone while you're going through your work week. I think that's a really important point, Bonnie. And Gurkurat, what are your thoughts around this?
Actually, so during this time, I think most of us have realized that all of us are not effective whole day long, as like our personal life and work life is kind of like very much mixed. So yeah, I think most of us have realized that they are like the night owls. They can work more effectively in the night, or like some people, they can work more effectively early in the morning. So yeah, I think if there's like and our company, what they did was they are giving us the flexibility of doing it whenever you want. So if you are like a night person, you can complete most of your work in the night, and you can communicate it with other people during the daytime. If you have something like that the other companies are doing, that would be really great, like to know something like that.
So maybe that's another part of the thing that we've learned from the whole experience of work from home, is that it has allowed people to be a bit more flexible in some instances, depending on the nature of the work that they do. Do you agree with that? And is that a good thing? I think it's so interesting how all of these things are impacting the way the future of work is likely to evolve. I wanted to ask really about whether you could, and I'm going to go to each one of you, tell us, is there anything that you want employers and schools to know about what your studying and work reality is like? What do you think it's important for them to understand? Marshall, maybe we could start with you.
Sure. So right now, actually, school life is a lot harder. Online learning, it's not the same. I know people learn differently, and I'm a learner who learns by actively participating. So taking me outside of the classroom, it takes a lot more work for me to actually be able to learn at the level I was previously, just being in the classroom and actively participating. So it's a lot more time consuming, especially with any group meetings. It sounds like group meetings would be easier and take less time online, but I'm finding it takes about double the time just to get group projects done as well. So while online, it sounds like it will take less time, I'm finding it adds more time.
Andrew, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'm on the contrary of where Marshall sits. I think there's a lot more flexibility on online learning, but it does also have difficulties with group projects and stuff. But a lot of the asynchronous learning enables a lot of flexibility in my schedule. Not having to sit in a lecture hall for 4 hours, being able to break that lecture up into hour sets creates a lot more flexibility. So if I want to have an interview in the middle of the week, it's a lot easier to do it instead of having to reschedule everything. Juggling a lot more commitments is a lot easier now too, because of an online environment. You don't have to transit anywhere, and it saves a lot of time that way. So that's definitely one of the benefits that have come up during this online learning experience.
Jada, what do you want employers and educators to know about your reality these days?
I think right now there is an increased flexibility, and also I find I have more autonomy over my time. I'm able to schedule my day according to how I think I should go versus basically, I remember in my previous internship, it was a set schedule. So I think I really come to appreciate this autonomy, and that's something I hope to keep in my future as I enter the workforce.
And Haley, any thoughts about this?
For sure. I mean, having an online environment definitely makes it a lot easier to be involved with more things because, as Andrew mentioned, you're not commuting anywhere. You're able to just to go from meeting to meeting. But something that I've found is that it's far more difficult to connect virtually with somebody, to just have a conversation and it feel natural. In some classes that I'm in, they're very much participation based. In group projects that I do, I found that it's a lot more difficult to establish great relationships with your professors or your classmates or your teammates when it's fully virtual and you've never met them in person. So I think that that's just being virtual, just the nature of that, definitely creates some difficulties and some barriers in group projects, despite the fact that maybe it's easier to schedule meetings and to hold meetings more frequently. So that's a little bit of a barrier that personally I found that I've had to kind of jump over.
And is there anything, Bonnie, that you think employers and educators should understand about your reality now?
Definitely to echo Haley, something that I really value is even walking to campus, the little interactions I have with my friends and my peers day to day, having that taken from me, for me personally, was really difficult to adapt to, especially with the new Zoom university, just staring at a screen all day. But that also translates into the work environment. I feel that it's really important for employers to strive to kind of make up for the little daily interactions that their students and their employees are losing on a day-to-day basis. And overall, I think that sort of environment really adds to the overall experience that anyone has at their company.
I'd agree with you. Gurkurat, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with like most of them that we do get more flexibility, but I think it kind of like it distracts us also more. Like during the online class, there's like ton of other things which I might be doing, like replying to someone or like stuff like that. So I do think that there's a toll on the learning. Like if I used to learn a lot more during the like the physical, like going into the classroom. Yeah, and that is something I agree with.
Aaron, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that my reality now at this point is that the learning curve has extended. The learning curve of whether it's in the workplace or at school. It takes longer for me to learn whether it's technology or whether it's just concepts. And I think that with the learning curve having an extension, that we need patience and to understand that everyone is managing differently during these difficult times.
Okay, I think these are all fantastic observations and ones that obviously come from real experience, and you've given it a lot of thought, and I really appreciate that. I wonder if there's something that you could advise us about what educators or employers could do to support you, to make it easier for you. Maybe, Andrew, you could start with the conversation.
For sure, yeah. Don't be afraid to reach out to anyone at the school. I think one good example of this is I'm one of the student leaders, one of the CACEE competition teams at SFU. An employer reached out and just asked if I've had anyone on mind that could fill an internship role. I was able to forward a couple of referrals, and they were able to start their internship program that way. So we had an organization that didn't have an internship program that was able to start it up during this period of COVID, and now it's even growing and doubling in January. So there's definitely opportunities, and I think if you're looking for students to hire, students know students, and they're always going to be able to bring someone to you that's really forward thinking, really innovative. I think it's a great opportunity to connect with student leaders at this time. Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out.
Great advice. So Jada, what do you think that employers and educators could do to support you? What would be critical from your perspective?
I think for me, I really value professional development opportunities, whether that comes in the form of workshops or online seminars. I find that tends to be very valuable and always attracts my attention, and it is an effective way of building a relationship with the company, and it almost helps me to envision a future there.
And Aaron, any thoughts on this?
I do think that companies need to maintain prioritizing diversity and inclusion discussions. You know, a lot of the focus due to COVID might be moved, whether it's like focusing on profitability and focusing on how to adapt, but we can't forget diversity and inclusion principles within the workplace. And we saw this summer with various issues that arose, and that we need to maintain a focus on those diversity and inclusion issues in order to maintain an inclusive work environment for employees.
A really important point. Bonnie, anything to add in terms of that?
I personally think that students are really watching to see which employers are taking the initiative to support these students and trying to connect with these students. Much like Andrew, I'm also a student leader on a CACEE competition team, and we always welcome any opportunities for these employers reaching out to us to host these virtual events and coffee chat sessions. And I think vice versa, the students really value the opportunities that they're being provided in this virtual environment as well.
Great. And Gurkharat, what do you think would help from the point of view of what employers and educators could do to support you?
I think recently I was like looking on Indeed, and and I found out that there was like very few jobs for the fresh graduates, like someone who doesn't have that much experience. So yeah, I would say like the employers, they can definitely take a chance on the fresh graduates, because they're like, I see many like a huge talented people who don't have that much work experience, and they're like it's very hard for them to find a job. But yeah, I think if they get a proper chance, they can be like a huge investment like later on.
I agree. Haley, what are your thoughts about what employers could do to support you in this transition, or educators?
Of course, it's been brought up already in this call, but mental health is huge now, especially with everyone working from home 24/7. It's very difficult to separate your work life from your personal life, and it's very easy to fall into like kind of a bad mental state. So something that's very crucial, I think, both from the point of view of an employer and from an educator, is to provide resources for mental health check-ins, provide breaks if needed, and just provide flexibility. It's very easy to schedule back-to-back meetings with this online environment, and that doesn't work for everybody. And it's easy to overlook the fact that people might be going through their own challenges. So I think providing resources as well as flexibility is crucial in this time. Just to understand that we're going through a global crisis right now. We can't overlook the fact that people's mental health is negatively impacted by that, and there needs to be some flexibility to accommodate for that.
And Marshall, any thoughts on that score?
I like what everyone else said. The only thing I can think to add is transparency. I'd love to know, like, as long as you're being upfront and honest, like when you know something, just tell us, or like be transparent about the process of onboarding, of what you provide, or for education. Hey, like, we're still working stuff out, just please bear with us. And because I mean, even I had a midterm last week and there was technical glitches, so we just had to work around that. So it's just being upfront that, hey, we're experiencing this, and not keeping us in the dark.
No, absolutely. So just as a final thought, I wonder, Marshall, we'll start with you, but I'd like to go around the table to find out whether you have any final advice to employers out there who are interested in reaching out to young talent and bringing them on board within their organizations. What advice would you give them?
I'd say, hey, we're here, we're looking, please reach out. We're happy to talk to you and are looking for opportunities. So just get to know us, because we'd love to get to know you.
Jada?
I think this was previously mentioned, but reach out to student clubs. I think that's a really great way to reach students who already have an engaged member base, especially if you're targeting a specific major concentration. You'll find that there's usually a student club that's already in place, and they're always looking to collaborate.
Great advice. And Andrew?
Yeah, to echo what Jada said, connect with student leaders and student clubs is a great way. But also during this time, though it might look really bleak, might not look like there's not a lot of opportunity, but I think it's a great opportunity for really employees to shine and to be able to reach out to students and show that they're really able to connect and take advantage of this opportunity, even though it's virtual, to really show what your company is really about.
Great advice. Bonnie?
I think this virtual world is the perfect opportunities for a lot of employers to kind of experiment with how they do recruiting as well. I do find that the entire experience is so different when certain companies have game sessions or I just personally love the game sessions, and I find that it really showcases an entirely new part of myself that a lot of recruiters wouldn't see just from a resume. And another point is that I feel like a lot of new grads are very eager to get to know a lot of employers, just like Marshall had mentioned earlier.
Great. And Aaron?
I would say that I think that security and job certainty is important, and therefore conversion into full-time positions or conversion into potential opportunities in the future after a work internship is crucial in order for students to decide where they'd like to get that work experience, and then also for their future career.
Okay, and Gurkurat?
I think I'll definitely agree what Aaron said, that yeah, if we can know about the possibility of like transitioning our internship or like our co-op into the full-time position, yeah, that would be great.
And finally, I'll end with you, Haley. Any final advice?
I think definitely just if employers can experiment a little bit with how they're recruiting, as Bonnie mentioned, whether that be holding field-specific events that are unique. It might be panel discussions or guest speakers, things to kind of draw in students that may not have attended regular networking events otherwise. And that's really a great way to connect with new talent that you might not have been able to find before. And it really adds just another layer of kind of connection between the employer and the student.
Well, all excellent advice and such great sharing. Thank you so much. It's very important to employers and educators to understand what you're going through. Thank you all for sharing your really very important insights into the world of students and grads as you make your school to work transition during what is truly a historical period for Canada and the world. So thank you again.